Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another live edition. Today's date is September 29, 2015. My name is Natalie-Marie. My radio show is called Crystal Kids Radio. I'm only 15 years old. I would like to thank Chris and Shuzia for having me on True Frequency Network. If you could be so kind to find it in your heart to donate so I could continue doing this show, that would help since I don't make any money off of shows. Today I have a special guest by the name of Mark Passio. Please listen to the interview because he has a lot of great things to say. Hello Mark, how are you?
Hi Natalie-Marie, I'm doing well today and thanks so much for having me back on your program.
It's such a pleasure to have you back.
Glad to be here.
Let's talk about your journey. How did you become what you are today? Can you tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I guess I've always been a person who's had an inquisitive nature and has wanted to look very deeply into things. I grew up in a kind of a standard Italian-American family in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And my family really didn't really have qualities like that. They were kind of like pretty traditional people and, you know, kind of the kind of people that go along to get along. You know, they don't really question things. They don't really look too deeply into things or, you know, ask the why behind why things are the way that they are. So growing up in a household like that, you know, it was kind of at odds with my personality, and I was indoctrinated a lot, not only in the school system, but in organized religion. And not to say that my family was strict religious, providing me with any kind of a strict religious upbringing, but again, it was just the typical average South Philadelphia Italian-American family and propagating, you know, Roman Catholicism belief systems. And I kind of bought into that for a while when I was younger and, you know, kind of put some faith into it. And when I started really reaching the age where I started to question things and, you know, religion of any kind didn't hold the answers to the questions that I was seeking, instead of just laying that down and accepting that as sort of a control system and something to, you know, indoctrinate people and put people off of the path of truth. Since I didn't really have any other deeper knowledge regarding what was going on in the world at that time, I kind of allowed my distaste for the religious upbringing that I had undergone and that indoctrination system to develop into outright hatred. And I deliberately sought out, when I was in my high school years, the exact antithesis of religion. And that's where I discovered the ideology of Satanism. So I became involved in Dark Occultism for many years. And I gravitated towards Satanism specifically. And when I talk about Satanism, a lot of people get very, you know, scared and, you know, they don't really know what it is. I mean, they have a picture in their mind of what they think that it is, but it's actually very different than what most people believe that it is. And again, I was kind of rebelling against the upbringing that I had been indoctrinated with. And again, I wanted to find the exact opposite to it, and I did. I found something that was absolutely the antithesis of religion. It was diametrically opposed to all morality. And Satanism, again, as I said, isn't what most people think that it is. There's 4 basic tenets to this ideology. And the tenets are, number 1, that the self is essentially the God in this religion. The ego is put up on a pedestal. I don't want to say worshipped, but it is definitely looked at as the highest thing to aspire to, is to serve the self. Self-preservation and self-serving ideology. That's what Satanism is ultimately all about. It's a me ideology. It's all about me. And it doesn't matter whether you have to step on somebody else to get what you want, or, you know, somebody else has to lose for you to win. It's all about doing really whatever you have to do to get over on other people and put yourself in an advantageous position over them. And it's very control freakish in that way. It's really about controlling other people, and it's about serving the self-interest no matter who has to get hurt in the process. That's the number one thing, is so self-serving, selfishness, and self-preservation being the highest aspirations for this ideology. The second tenet is moral relativism. Moral relativism means that you don't think that you don't believe that there's any such thing as a real difference between right and wrong. There is no objective right, there is no objective wrong. Morality really means nothing. Whatever's good for me is what I do, and whatever is bad for me is what I try to avoid. And it doesn't make a difference whether somebody else is being harmed in the process, whether there's injustice taking place all around you. It's if you're okay, you don't get involved in anything else. You just worry about you, and again, you look at things as, if it's right for me, do it. It doesn't matter who else it hurts, because there is no objective morality. It's just do whatever you want as long as you don't get caught. That's the second tenet. The third tenet is social Darwinism. Since they believe in self-preservation as being the highest aspiration and moral relativism, this is an easy pathway into social Darwinism, because this ideology postulates that whoever in society is the most ruthless should invariably come out on top and should rule the rest of humanity. And that's essentially what social Darwinism postulates. The idea of taking Darwinism into the social realm, Darwinism postulating the survival of the fittest mentality, then that's taken into the social strata, and in other words, whoever's the most cunning in society should invariably come out on top. It doesn't matter about morality. It doesn't make a difference how you treat people. If you can acquire more resources and more money and more power and more wealth, etc., then do that, and that's okay. And it doesn't matter, again, who gets harmed in the process. The fourth and final general tenet of Satanism is, I guess you could call it the logical conclusion to the other three. If you have a self-serving ideology that puts the self above all else and doesn't have any regard for others, you have an ideology that you don't care about the difference between right and wrong, and you also think that the most cunning and brutal I guess you could say the most ruthless should be rewarded the most in society. You could see that that's a slippery slope, but yet an easy pathway to eugenics, which is the fourth tenet of dark occultism in general. Eugenics is the idea that there's a superclass essentially that should get to decide who lives and who dies, who breeds and who does not breed, who propagates their genetic makeup and who is not permitted to do that. So eugenics is actually about population reduction and introducing slow kill methodologies into the population to control population growth, etc. And ultimately it's about culling programs, culling and thinning the population if need be. And people who believe that they're God on earth, which is what this ideology is ultimately all about, and have no regard for others and are either borderline or fully psychopathic, and propagating social Darwinistic belief systems, you could see how this is a comfortable fit for people like that to go into eugenics, because again they feel that they're superior to everybody else and they should propagate their genes while controlling other people's ability to procreate their own genetic makeup. So those are the four basic tenets, and when I got involved in this very twisted ideology back in my youth, I did not realize that it was the ideology that was controlling the world. I didn't recognize that at the time. I was basically, under the delusion that these were just isolated individuals working toward their own self-betterment in society. And when I began actually getting deeper involved into Satanism, I became aware that this wasn't an isolated group of people. It was a very tightly knit society. It was a network of people. They were working with occult knowledge. Again, that word simply means hidden, occult. They were working with hidden knowledge for reasons of really gaining more influence and power in society and working toward a common goal, which was to increase their own collective power at the expense of everybody else's freedom. They were about controlling all of society and ultimately enslaving other people at the highest levels. This is what the agenda was. They comprised an organized syndicate. And again, I was only involved at this at very low levels. So I couldn't tell you that I was involved at, at the highest levels of these networks of dark occultism. But from the low level that I was involved in, I recognized that they were operating as psychological filtration systems. In other words, the low-level groups, like the groups that I was involved with, such as the Church of Satan, or the Temple of Set, or the Order of the Evil Eye, etc., groups like that, they were acting as psychological vetting systems. In other words, they were trying to identify people with certain characteristics, traits, and talents that they could exploit and bring up into their system for the purposes of furthering their agenda. And when I really understood that that's what these dark occult or satanic networks were about, and that they were actually involved in the manipulation of basically all of human society, I began to realize I was involved in something way bigger here than I had originally thought, and I started to pull back my involvement. The conscience that I did have left at that time wouldn't allow me to proceed further, because while I was about increasing my own personal power in the world, I wasn't about enslavement. I didn't want to see other people enslaved. It was never what I was about. I was just a selfish, I would say, borderline psychopathic individual that just cared about himself and no one else at that time, and had a lot of hatred about being lied to about organized religion and indoctrinated into a religious system. So, this journey allowed me to really see the other side of things and what was really going on at the highest levels of power, because, if the people who I saw involved at the low levels, these were, you name the aspect of life, you name the aspect of society, and there were people there from every walks of life. Every single social institution on the face of the earth, there were people involved in the satanic networks, medicine, politics, banking, law, military, police, entertainment, technology, media, education. Every single social institution on the face of the earth. I would see people attending rituals and attending groups of Satanists. So, again, they weren't working separately. They were working together toward a common goal, too. It wasn't just about personal gain and learning about occult knowledge to further one's personal interests. It was about working together to essentially find people with the psychological characteristics and skill sets that they wanted to advance their predetermined agenda. And their agenda is essentially ruling over other people as their gods, and from the shadows, just putting people in point positions of power that they've groomed for those positions, and this network is working together behind the scenes. It is a hidden establishment, essentially, and I would suggest that people at the highest levels of all of those institutions, international bankers, high levels of the military-industrial complex, high levels of law, high levels of politics, high levels of entertainment, medicine, etc. They're all working together at those levels, and this is their ideology. Their ideology is Satanism. And one of the ways that they get people to continue to be susceptible to their influence, to their methods of mind control, is they get them to buy into, and this is very important, they get them to buy into what I would call a lower level, or a sort of a sanitized variant of their belief system. Sanitized isn't really the right word. It's more of a less intense, I guess you could say, variant of their belief system. Whereas the person would not really think that they're like God or they're in control of anything. It wouldn't be at that level of being instilled in the mind. But it's the idea that I only care about myself. I'm only here to serve my own self-interest, and who cares about what's right and wrong? I care about what I have to do to make it and get by during the course of any day, and that's all I'm concerned about. That's Satanism. That's a low-level version of the satanic ideology, and if they can keep people in that self-serving mindset, you're always going to be ruled by, I guess you could say, the alphas of this mentality, of this mindset, of this ideology. And that's where they have society. They have society in a satanic mindset. Most people are Satanists and don't even know it, because they have that self-serving interest mentality about service to self before anything else. And I don't really look outside of my own little circle. I don't look outside of, my own little group, my family, or my friends, and as long as I'm okay in the moment, it doesn't make a difference what's happening in the world. It doesn't make a difference what injustices are taking place. It doesn't make a difference how much freedom is being usurped and taken away and lost. If in the moment I have my house and my bed and my food on the table, I don't care about what's going on with anybody else in the world. And that is where they have the vast bulk of humanity in that mindset. And again, I would say, without any shadow of a doubt, that mentality, that ideology is a lower level form of Satanism. And that's how they propagate their control. As long as they can keep people there, they can keep them under control. Because again, you're not breaking out of their own mindset. So in other words, the alphas, I guess you could say, the most ruthless or vicious of that mindset that are actually constitute the priest class in these satanic networks, they're always going to rule anybody that has that level of consciousness, because it's a very low vibratory state of consciousness. And if they can keep people there, they're always going to be in the position to rule over them. Only when you come out of that mindset of self-serving interest and service to self only, and you pull back and look at the big, wider picture, the global picture, and understand about what's going on with human freedom, and then really start looking into it at an even deeper level and start to understand the true differences between right and wrong and what I've called natural law, or the universal spiritual laws that ultimately govern the consequences of human behavior. Only when we start to understand that higher level of awareness, and we take it into ourselves, and we become knowledgeable in regard to what's really going on outside of us in a wider sense. Only when we do that are we going to come to a level of consciousness that we're not going to be susceptible to their control and the methodologies of their control that take place psychologically in the mind. And that's what slowly began happening to me after I pulled back from my involvement in these groups and started to study occultism in a positive sense, in a deeper way. And yes, there is such a thing as the positive occult. Many people will say, oh, it's all bad. That's not true at all. There is hidden knowledge that is about the self, and that's all occultism means. Once again, it means hidden information, hidden knowledge, that knowledge which is not widely or popularly known. That's all occult means. And there is a body of that knowledge that is all about how the psyche works, the human psyche. It is all about how we operate at a deep level of consciousness, and that's very powerful, empowering information that we can take in and learn and grow from taking that information into ourselves. And so that's what I began to do, really studying, deeper psychology, really studying the deeper aspects of the self and consciousness and understanding how it works, and really going inward and, attempting to balance my own inward aspects of my consciousness, and, reshaping my diet, taking in better nutrients in the foods that I eat, and paying better attention to the media that I consume on a daily basis, and the kind of books that I read, and videos that I watch, etc. And upon doing that, I was able to come to a balanced state and really start to piece together all of this, and really put it together in a comprehensive way, so that it could be shared to people, and that they could understand the wider picture of what's really going on in our world, and then get involved to help to do something about it for the positive. So that's a general outline of the journey that I've taken so far, and the general way that has come about is through, of course, the radio show that I did for a long time. It was What on Earth is Happening. Again, this is all at whatonearthishappening.com. That's my main website. And now it takes the form of a podcast. I may be going into a weekly radio show at some point in the future once again. Have a few things in the works regarding that, but I haven't made any decisions yet, and I'll be announcing that in the near future. But the role that this essentially took was for me to amass this information in a coherent way that could easily be explained to someone with lots of visuals and some artistic creativity added to it, and then put it out there freely for people so that they can take in that tapestry, again, help to heal themselves from this mentality, from this mindset, and then to help be able to come into a position where they could also explain it to others. That's the ultimate goal of what I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years now.
Can I play something for you? The
Sure.
History Channel interviewed the High Priest of the Church of Satan. His name is Peter Howard Gilmore. He is not only on this clip, he was also on CBC Canada.
My father founded the Church of Satan in 1966, and I was the first legal satanic baptism in history, and I was about 3.5 years old. I remember it vividly. Now, what a satanic baptism is it's somewhat different from the Christian baptism of cleansing the child of the original sin. We don't believe there is an original sin, and we don't see what the child needs to be cleansed of in the first place. We think that all of the things that made the child come to be are natural and true and should be celebrated and honored. So meaning all of the romantic nights or whatever that made the child come to be a living entity should be something celebrated. So my baptism was something more of a glorification of life, a glorification and an appreciation for this new life. And it was, from what I remember, it was an ecstatic experience because all the attention was focused on me, and as a lot of children like that, it is something that we feel is important to say that children and babies should be held in the most sacred regard because we feel that they're the most natural and true magician.
The lust, and I think that from what I've read, that's what it is.
The Church of Satan has chosen Satan as its primary symbol because in Hebrew it means adversary, opposer, one to accuse or question. And we see ourselves as being the Satans, the adversaries, opposers, and accusers of all spiritual belief systems that would try to hamper enjoyment of our life as a human being.
This is a very selfish religion. We believe in greed, we believe in selfishness, we believe in all of the lustful thoughts that motivate man because this is man's natural feeling. If you're going to be a sinner, be the best sinner on the block. If you're going to do something that's naughty, do it. And realize that you're doing something naughty and enjoy it.
He almost looks like the Pope, but he sounds extremely scripted. Is he the Black Pope?
I think that last voice that you heard there on that clip was Anton LaVey,
Yes, he was.
if I'm not mistaken. And he was the high priest of the Church of Satan up until his death in 1997. LaVey is who I had contact with in the Church of Satan. He was the person who appointed me as a priest in that organization. I also had some minor contact with Gilmore when he was running Hell's Kitchen Productions, which was kind of like the promotional aspect of the Church of Satan back in the mid-1990s. I'm not really sure. I think he's the high priest of the Church of Satan now, Gilmore, from New York City. But I'm not exactly sure what the dynamics that are going on in that organization are now, as I don't have any contacts or anything to do with them anymore. But yeah, I mean, what he's saying there rests on a primarily false assumption that this is humanity's natural state. Again, he is confusing human nature with the human condition. And that's what I also did back in my youth and in my past. Many people will hear things like this and agree with it because they see what people are like now in the world. And they say, oh yeah, that's just people want selfish things. They're selfish creatures. That's human nature. And what people don't understand is what they're seeing out in society that is playing out like that is not the nature of a human being. It's the condition that human beings have been worked into through mind manipulation, through the horrible conditions of daily life on this planet in many places, through the mindset that is propagated by other people, whether knowingly or unknowingly. It has nothing to do with the nature of a human being. If we're to be honest, and many people will go the other way, and they'll say, oh no, the nature of the human being is totally pure and innocent and good all the time, and then there's just this corruption that has creeped in from these negative elements in society. And I wouldn't lean that way either and say human beings' nature is either angelic or demonic. I don't believe in either of those suppositions. I think that the nature of a human being is that it is programmable and can be worked into a particular condition. So it depends on how it is worked. You could say, like, what's the nature of this sculpting clay? Well, is the nature of this sculpting clay that it's, automatically forms something that's beautiful and majestic, and or that it can't be worked at all and it's useless and it just forms, amorphous blobs everywhere? Well, the nature of sculpting clay is that you can sculpt it. And that's the nature of a human being. The nature of a human being is that it can be conditioned into whatever we want it to be. That's its nature. How it actually comes out is determined by what we program it with. What do we put into it? Well, if we put good quality material in, if we put good quality understanding, if we put truth into it, if we put compassion into it, if we put creativity into it, and nurturing, and logic, and a healthy desire to question things, okay, we're going to have a human being that thinks for themselves, that is compassionate toward other people, that learns the difference between right and wrong. And then the behavioral output is going to be great. They're going to be doing some things that are good for the world and good for society all around them. Mm-hmm. And conversely, if we put garbage into it, if we put totally selfish belief systems into it, if we put the idea that man is just another animal and no different than any of the other animals, that there's no higher expectations for humankind to understand the difference between right and wrong and then choose the right over the wrong, to not harm others, to engage. If we again, following with the idea, if we just keep programming it with bad stuff, if we say harm whoever you want as long as you come out on top and don't get caught, and that's the ideology. What kind of behavioral output is going to be out on the screen? Just be self-serving and selfish. You're going to see a condition that being is going to be worked into that's going to provide output that makes you look at it and say, wow, that is just like another animal, any other animal that lives like a beast in the field and is vicious and cutthroat and cunning and ruthless. But that's not the nature of the being. That's the condition that it's been worked into. So again, this is where I take, I guess you could say, I take exception to the underlying premise of the Satanist that spoke here in this clip, particularly LaVey toward the end, that his premise is that this is human nature. And I would say absolutely wrong. No, that is not what human nature is. What you are seeing and describing is the human condition. And a condition is what we make it. It was conditioned to be that way. That's why it's called a condition. The condition of your television set depends on how you kept it, whether you kept the technology in good shape. The condition of my computer and the software that is on it is dependent upon what did I put into this computer? What did I program it with? What kind of software did I give it? Does it have malware in it? Does it have viruses in it infecting it, or is it clean? Does it have a good operating system? Does it have great software that enables you to do creative things? That's the condition, and the condition was worked into that shape. It was worked to be that way. It didn't just happen. There's no nature of a computer. The nature of a computer is that it computes. That's it. Just like a human being. It takes in information, it processes it, and then it outputs it on the screen that we call life. And again, the quality of what a computer is going to output is the quality of what was programmed into it. The quality of what a human being is going to output through behavior, and thus the condition that the human being is going to express in the world is going to be dependent upon what did we program it with? What kind of underlying belief systems did we program it with? And not even belief systems, just, how about knowing the truth? How about a healthy desire to know the truth instead of believe anything? Satanism is a belief system just like any other religion. And they'll try to say it's not a religion, it's just an ideology. And it is certainly an ideology and a way of living life above all else. But it is a religion because it is based upon belief systems that are not true, cannot fundamentally be borne out as true and verified as true, that the adherents to this religion believe in and accept as true. Axioms that they accept as being true based on their erroneous perception of human nature. And I would say to anybody that subscribes to this twisted ideology and this religion, what you need to do, if you're going to be honest with yourself, is take a step back from the belief that you are attached to. And absolutely, they are attached to a belief. And I would suggest that what that belief system has to do with is the fundamental nature of a human being. Anybody who buys into the satanic ideology has bought into the religion, the religious belief that the fundamental nature of the human being is essentially bad, greedy, selfish, and animalistic. And that's not what the nature of the human being is. That may be the condition that the majority, I'll admit, of human beings have been worked into at the current time that we live in this period in history. But do not make the fundamental error, the mistake of assuming that means that's what human nature is, because nothing could be farther from the truth. Again, the nature of the human being is that it can be programmed and worked into whatever condition we can imagine, essentially. And that is changeable. That is changeable dependent upon the quality of the information that is going into the human being. If good information goes in, good output comes out. If bad information goes in, garbage comes out, just like a computer. I'm not saying a human being is a computer. I'm saying that the condition that a human being displays on the screen, quote unquote, that we call life here on Earth is like, it works like how we would program a computer. And the same way that if we put good information into a computer, good output comes out. And if we put bad information in, garbage comes out. A human being's behavioral output is very similar to how that works in the computing realm.
Mm-hmm. What is ego identification?
Ego identification. Yes, this is a very important concept. Essentially, what ego identification is human beings play different roles in life. Okay, so someone may play the role of a parent. That's their situation. That's what they are doing. Okay, they will play the role of what they do at their job. Let's say they're a salesperson. So that's another aspect of their life. They may be a sister. They may have a brother or another sister. So they're a sibling. And that's another aspect of their life, okay? And they, play out different situations and roles in their life. Now, the identification part comes in. So in other words, you could look at it as those are all different egos. I may go to work and I may have to behave and project certain things here at work and, behave a certain way. Well, that's one form of an ego. Then I go home and I could play the role of a parent and take care of my child and help him or her to grow up properly. And I'm playing an ego role there. That's the ego part, all these different roles that we play. The identification part comes in where we become attached to a particular role and we start to see that role as who we are, as our identity, hence the term identification. So we are identifying or taking on as our identity one or more of these particular ego roles. So, for example, let's say you ask somebody, who are you? And they come back and they say, well, I'm a cab driver. Is that who they are? Or does that happen to be the job that they perform on a daily basis to make some money? They're not a cab driver. They may answer the question like that and say, this is how I define myself, but that's just an ego identified role. They identify themselves with that position or with that job. Somebody, you may say, oh, who are you? What are you all about? And they say, well, I'm a soldier. I'm in the U.S. military. I'm an Army soldier. Somebody may say, I'm a police officer. I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. This isn't who we are. It happens to be what we may do at a particular time in our life. If that person decides, I don't want to do this anymore, they can go and become anything else that they want, do anything else that they want. But again, ego identification is when you become almost kind of locked into one of these roles and you see it, you begin to see it as who you actually are. And that's your identity, and you can't even imagine that you are anything else other than that. So it's a mode of consciousness that is limiting, and it puts your own, I guess you could say, your expanded awareness. It stops that from growing, and it will put it into a box by saying, no, everything outside of these parameters of this role, okay, that's not who I am. This is who I am in this box. I am the doctor who, takes care of heart patients in this particular hospital in this city. That's who I am. No, that's what you do. So again, it's about identification with these particular roles that we play in life, and could be very, very powerful attachment to these roles. You'll particularly see that in authoritarian mindsets and belief systems. You'll particularly see this in military and police roles, in politicians as well. Anybody who's in an authoritarian mindset or who is seen as an authority, you'll even see it big time in education. People who have tenure at a university, very entrenched in their identified state, their ego-identified role. I am a professor at this university and I have tenure here. This is who I am. This is my life, and that's it. I am this cop. I've been a cop. I'm on this beat. This is what I do, and that's who I am. I am a cop. I am this soldier. I'm in this regiment, in this division, and this is my identity. That's what ego identification is. And this identified attachment can be very, 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 very difficult to break down and help people to understand that they are so much more than whatever particular role that they're playing in life at any particular time or any job that they are doing. It's a very deep attachment in some people, which is why they can't hear information that conflicts with who they think they are or what they are doing. You'll talk about the police state with a cop, you'll talk about the imperialistic mindset of the United States at this time with a soldier. And they have a difficult time separating themselves, their identified role, from being able to hear the truth about what's going on in the world at a particular time. They don't want to hear that because, hey, I'm involved in that and that's who I am. You'll tell a teacher about the outcome-based education indoctrination system that's based on the Prussian educational model. and how that was just basically a mind control cult-like program for indoctrinating children into becoming basically mindless automatons that would follow the state and do whatever it told them to do. And you explain to them point for point, this is exactly the outcome-based educational system in America, in public schools in America right now at this time in history. And because that person's involved in that role, they can't hear that. You can tell it to them, but it's not sinking in, because it's like they're thinking, well, I'm a teacher and I know that I am a good person and I'm involved in this system. So it can't be what you're saying that it is. That's fighting ego identification. When somebody is trapped in that role, they are so identified with it, they are so attached to that role that they see it as who they are at the very essence of their being. It can be very, very difficult to get through information to them that is conflicting with their worldview and their belief system as a member of that particular institution. So that's why it's so important to understand what ego identification is, and to help try to break down the barriers to it, and to help bring people out of that conditioned mindset that what you do is who you are. It's not who you are. Who you are, you can change by an act of your own will in the very moment, in the very present moment. It's all about simply taking another look at yourself and seeing yourself from a different perspective, and stop being so attached to the story that you're telling yourself about who you are, because that's just a story. It's not who we really are at the deep fundamental level. So that's my best effort there at explaining what ego identification is and why it's so important to understand.
Wow. What is your definition of wisdom?
My definition of wisdom is doing the right action with the knowledge that you have come to acquire. You've come to acquire knowledge, and now you know something. So you have understanding based upon knowledge, which is based upon truth. So you've taken truth in, that has become knowledge, and now you understand its implications. Now you are taking action with that understanding. Only when you're doing that has it been converted into wisdom. So what I would say above all else wisdom is wisdom is right action. And most people won't think of it like that. Most people will think of wisdom as knowledge. They'll equate it with knowledge. Wisdom is what you do with knowledge. So wisdom actually is action. It is a masculine principle. Wisdom is action, but it's more specific than that. Wisdom is right action. It's action that is in actual, true alignment with natural law. It is in alignment with the laws of morality. So it's right action. It is action that has been aligned with natural law, such that you are taking action that is not causing harm to other people and is helping to benefit society as a whole by propagating the understanding that you have come to acquire through the pursuit of truth. That's what I would say that wisdom really is.
What is the religion of a New World Order?
The religion of the Dark New World Order, I would say, is twofold. It is Satanism and Dark Luciferianism. That is the two religions that comprise what I would call the Dark New World Order, or the Dark Great Work, which is the work of slavery and totalitarianism. I would say that the people who propagate the negative worldview are the Satanists, and they are the kind of minions of the Dark New World Order. These are the people like you just heard interviewed there, higher level Satanists like Anton LaVey, Peter Gilmore, etc. You're talking about people with such a poisoned worldview regarding human nature that they've bought into these dark ideologies and are propagating them themselves. I used to be an adherent to that religion. And fortunately for me, my consciousness was able to break free of that and come up to a higher level of understanding. And that only happened through enormous suffering in my life. I had to suffer enough where I recognized that I was basically causing all of that suffering myself by the worldview that I was attached to. And it took a whole lot of personal suffering for me to finally come out of that worldview. Above the Satanists, however, are the Luciferians. These are the people who really, truly do understand how natural law operates. I would call them the true dark black magicians that are running the show. And these are people who know how natural law operates. And I would say that they're probably multi-generational dark occultists whose family propagates enormous wealth and influence and power in society. So they are more likely than not connected to bloodlines that go right back into the ancient world. And their mindset or their worldview is one that the entire creation, the whole universe, is a prison for their own consciousness and the consciousness of those like them who are kind of psychopathic like them and want to rule over everything. But they know that natural law is in effect, and they look at natural law as a prison condition. They don't look at natural law the way I look at natural law. See, we're free. We have free will to choose our own behaviors, but we don't have free will to choose behaviors without consequence. The behaviors that we choose carry consequences with them. The whole philosophy of natural law has often been termed consequentialism, and I have no problem with that term. I actually like that term, referring to natural law. Natural law essentially is very similar, almost identical to what has been termed consequentialism. If you look up the term consequentialism, you will essentially get an appreciation or an understanding of what natural law is. I would say natural law entails a bit more than that, because we could get into the principles that underlie natural law, and then you're getting into like deep positive occult teachings and schools of thought that were taught in mystery school traditions throughout the ancient world. But to go back to what the religion is, the top religion is Luciferianism, of the dark priest class that is really running the earth right now. And again, they look at the boundary conditions that I call natural law, these spiritual laws of consequence that govern the behavioral decisions that we make through our free will. They look at it as a prison condition. They see the whole world, the whole universe as a prison, because they want to be able, their goal is to be able to do whatever they want without consequence. So that's very important to understand about what the priest class that's running the world right now, what their goal ultimately is. Their goal is to turn the laws of creation on their head. Okay? They want to find a way to break the laws of creation by doing whatever they want, no matter who it harms, and being insulated from the consequences of those behavioral choices. Now, this is total folly. It cannot be done, okay? But what they want to try to do is to insulate themselves from those behavioral consequences to the extent that is within their power in the physical domain. So they want to be rulers in the physical world, okay? So in other words, the hell that they consider the physical world as, because natural law is in effect, they want to rule in that hell, rather than serve the creation by propagating the understanding of natural law, which is what serving the will of creation would be. That's the true great work, okay? Which is, again, that's what I'm attempting to do in propagating the understanding of how natural law operates and why we should align our behavior to it if we don't wish to continue to receive self-inflicted suffering. So the dark priest class are those who see these boundary conditions that I'm terming natural law as prison barriers, prison conditions, because they, in their ego-driven mind state, what they want to do, what they're seeking to do, is to overturn the laws of creation and be able to do whatever they want, no matter how vicious, evil, or harmful it is, without any consequence to themselves in the physical world. And they are very effective at doing this. I said before, it's folly. It can't really be done, and I still hold to that at the highest level, you're not going to get away with doing evil and harm. It is going to be balanced out one way or another by creation, because you're bound by creation. You're in the universe. Your consciousness is operating here. the balance is going to be paid at one place or another, whether in this world or the next. Okay, whatever form of consciousness happens after physical, cessation of physical life. Okay, that balance is going to be paid in full at some point or another, at some time or another, at some place or another. So it's folly in the ultimate sense to even try to do that. But see, they don't care about what's going to happen to their consciousness anywhere else, because they are working on life extension technologies to try to keep their consciousness here for as extended of an amount of time as possible. So this priest class is the transhumanist. They are the social Darwinistic mindset. They are the eugenicists, and they're again trying to be God on Earth, and to keep their consciousness here for as long as it can be kept here through life extension technology, so that they do not go and take the consequences of natural law. See, it's the people who have, I would say that the priest class of the Dark New World Order, or the dark Luciferians as I call them, are the people who cannot accept reality the most, more than anybody else. And yet they know what the reality is. See, they know what the reality is and how it works. They know about natural law. And they so hate it. They hate it so much. They've rejected it so much. Instead of accepting that this is how things are, and as long as we're in the universe, that we have to acknowledge that this is how it is if we are here. Okay? They say, no, I'm, by an act of my own will, going to overturn the laws of God. And they believe in their totally diseased mindset they can do this. And it's almost funny to me, because I recognize the total lunacy and impossibility of what they are doing. Now I recognize that. But they still believe it's possible, what they're doing. And in a way, you could look at what they're doing as partially successful, because they're isolating, they're insulating themselves from the consequences of natural law consequences, okay? They're insulating themselves from it by a very smart methodology. Instead of doing the behaviors themselves, they've at least understood that the karmic or natural law consequences are going to be dampened or lessened if they could get other people to do the behaviors that they themselves would have to do to control other people. So this is where the idea of moral culpability comes in to the picture when we talk about who's really running the show, okay? Who's really running the control system. It's a priest class of dark occultists who I call dark Luciferians, because they have the knowledge, and that's all the word Lucifer means. One who brings knowledge, who carries knowledge. That's a good translation for the term Lucifer. The term light, lux in Latin, is where the term Lucifer comes from. Okay, lux Lucius, and it means light. We measure light in lumens. This comes from lux in Latin. So the first part of Lucifer is light. And light means knowledge in occult schools of thought. If you have light, it means you have knowledge of how things work. You have an understanding of how they really operate. That's to have the light. And the second part of Lucifer, ferre, it's the Latin ferro ferre. It means to carry. So to ferry something means to carry from one place to another, like a ferry. If you put your car on a ferry and go over a channel, okay, it's carrying your car from one bank of that channel to another. So it's ferrying it. It's carrying it, like as in a boat or a ferry. Okay, so to ferre means to carry in Latin. So that's all it means, is to carry the light, or to, in other words, carry the knowledge. And to carry it, you have to have it in your possession. So Luciferians are those who have knowledge in their possession. Okay, a lot of knowledge, I would say. They're polymaths. They're people who have studied a whole lot about a whole lot. They have tremendous in-depth knowledge of how things work, particularly how the human psyche works and how the laws of nature work. They know those two things in depth. That's what occult knowledge entails. those two bodies of knowledge. The minor arcana of the occult is the knowledge of the microcosm or the monad of consciousness called the human being, which is the human psyche. Okay, the underlying psychological motivations and drives of the human being. That's the minor arcana, and the different qualities of the characteristics of the personality. Then you have the major arcana, which is about the laws of nature, the macrocosm, the universe, and especially about natural law is entailed. The knowledge is entailed in the major arcana. So those are the two bodies of knowledge that comprise the occult, and that's what these Luciferians have. These dark Luciferians don't want to use that for bringing other people up in consciousness and helping them to understand how these things work so that they can empower themselves and become better people and improve society. No, they want to hoard all that knowledge and use it against other people as a power differential to control them. So again, their worldview is, because we can't accept that natural law binds our behavior and that we essentially are going to have consequences to our behavior, we want to get other people to do the harmful actions that we tell them to do by manipulating their mind into believing they have to do it. Okay? And in doing that, we're going to insulate ourselves as much as possible in the real physical world from the brunt of the consequences of natural law. And this goes to the issue, as I said, of moral culpability, because you have to ask yourself the question, who is more morally culpable? The one who gives an order to commit harm to another person, or the one who receives an order to commit harm from another person and then goes out and carries that action out and actually commits the harm? I would say invariably at all times and places, the brunt of the moral culpability is always going to be taken by the person who commits the action, who goes out and does that act of harm, not the person who orders that act of harm to be done. They're going to be morally culpable, but not nearly as morally culpable as the person who goes and commits the action. So when asking who's more morally culpable, the order giver or the order follower, the right answer, the correct and true answer is always the order follower bears the brunt of the responsibility for that behavior, because he's the one that led to its manifestation by doing the action. The action wouldn't have gotten done if the order giver just said, hey, go do that, and the order follower goes, no, I will not do that. That is going to cause harm. I don't have the right to do that, and I won't do it. By refusing to do that, that stops the manifestation of that evil thought and command. Go let the order giver go carry out that command if he can. And again, these are old men, in dark suits, smoking cigars and cigarettes, that with graying hair, that are pretty overweight because of the types of indulgent lifestyles that they lead, or underweight because they have a type of metabolism that, because their mind is so overactive all day, makes them look like waifs. So they're either overweight fat old men, or they're underweight old men that look like a bag of bones and couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag if they tried. And they're not going to be able to go and carry these actions out that they're commanding on a daily basis. They have to get dupes to go and carry their actions out. They have to go and get people who have no idea about what's really going on in the world and in life, because they've never actually picked up some books and read once in their life, who are extremely ignorant, who don't pay attention to anything that's really going on around them, who have self-loathing tendencies and ultimately hate themselves and want to be kept like pets. They want to be ordered around everywhere so they don't have to think for themselves. They're self-loathing children with mommy and daddy abandonment issues, is who these order followers really are. And they're going to, these Satanists and dark Luciferians are giving them all these orders and all these commands, getting them to do all these immoral things that they have no right to do. And they're saying, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, let me go out and do these things. And to keep my paycheck, or to keep my job, or to keep my ego identification of the role that I play in life. This is who I am. I am this soldier. I am this cop, etc. And they're taking on all of the negative karma and the brunt of the moral culpability and responsibility for what these sick, twisted psychopaths who look at themselves as their owners and their masters are going and telling them to do. And yet they'll continue to do it because they don't know any better. They don't know themselves. They don't know the first thing about the first thing. They don't know principles. First things are principles. They don't have principles. Order followers don't have principles. If you're actively an order follower, you don't have principles. You don't know what principles are. You can think you have principles. You can believe you have principles, but you don't know what principles really are. No one with true principles would follow orders, anyone's orders, ever. People with real principles act of their own volition because they know that what they're doing is the right thing to do, based on knowledge of truth and knowledge of the definitive objective difference between right and wrong behavior, because they've studied it and they've come into an understanding of that for themselves. Not because someone else told them it was the right thing to do, or told them that they needed to do it, or told them that they should do it. Nobody who has real principles behaves that way. Only people who are self-loathing, little boys, little girls with mommy issues and daddy issues of abandonment, okay, and have self-loathing tendencies and ultimately hate themselves and have no true self-respect are order followers. Order following is not a virtue. Order following is the most absolutely reprehensible path to all forms of evil that have ever existed on the face of the earth. And I have zero respect for anyone that follows orders, because what I know through firsthand experience, not through belief, not through reading about it in books, but from firsthand experience of being around these psychopaths for myself, is that the order followers of this world are serving people who hate them more than anybody else. The psychopathic priest class that we're describing as the religious leaders of the dark New World Order, these dark Luciferians and these Satanists, they hate the order followers who do their bidding more than anybody else. They look at them as pawns, as puppets, as clowns. They look at them as dogs. They look at them as, you're my dog on a leash. Bark when I tell you to bark, dog. Sit when I tell you to sit, dog. That's how they think about the police. That's how they think about the military. That's how they think about anybody who follows their orders. They hate these people, loathe them, detest them, but they'll use them. They'll use them and use them and use them and use them until they're all used up, until they've just gotten them to do every act of evil that they've commanded them to do. And in doing so, what they've done to their soul, what they've done to their spirit, is they've gotten them to take on all the moral consequences by actually doing that behavior. You basically went up to a total psychopathic lunatic, dark Satanist or dark Luciferian, and this psychopath is thinking in their own mind, what kind of idiot dupe do I have to convince and mind control into doing my evil, sick, twisted thoughts for me? Because I'm too much of a coward and a chicken and a person who doesn't even have the physical ability to get any of those things done, because I'm a bag of bones, old clown, or I'm a, overweight putz that couldn't possibly do any of these physical things. So I'm going to go get the dumb, uneducated jock who was, not liked in high school, or who, felt horrible about himself because he was abused. All these different things going on in the psyche of people who want to become controllers and abusers and people who follow orders. And again, like I said, yeah, it's psychological illnesses, but I don't have any respect for these people because they haven't looked for one iota into themselves to try to heal these things. All they want to do is try to take it out on other people when there's knowledge and healing methods available all around them. But they would rather, instead of taking a look at themselves and finding out, what do I need to heal? Why am I following orders from a sick, twisted psychopath? And the institutions that tell me, that are sick, twisted, and psychopathic, that are telling me I must continue to do these things. And instead of actually looking at themselves and taking another look at who they are and developing some self-respect and going a little bit into knowledge, which is all it would really take. It's not as big of a task as even people think that it is to work your way into some level of balance so that you could start to heal your psyche. It's cowardice. These people think that they have so much courage because, I strap on this gun and I strap on this badge and I go out and take on the quote unquote bad guys. There's no courage in what these people are doing in today's world in following orders. Would you describe the SS as courageous people? Would you describe the secret police, the Soviet Union as courageous people? Would you describe, the Stasi as courageous people? Would you describe the Gestapo as courageous people? I would describe them as cowards who wouldn't say no to their superior officers, who wouldn't say no to their, controllers above them. So again, that's who this priest class is. They're Satanists and dark Luciferians. They're working through mind control methods to get other people to take the brunt of their moral culpability away by doing the behaviors that they want to command. And these other people are so duped and so totally they're illiterate, uneducated, unread, completely ignorant people. And again, I'm not even calling them stupid. Okay? They have the capacity. They don't work with their capacity. They would rather just take action because someone else told them to do, because they believe that's going to absolve them from their moral responsibility to choose right behavior over wrong behavior. I don't have to think about what I do. I just do it. I just accept the order, follow it, and do it unquestioningly. So therefore, all the thought process about whether this is right or not, I don't have to do any of that. Well, they're still responsible for the behavior that they enact. It doesn't make a difference whether they believe they could be absolved. You can't be absolved. You're always personally responsible for the behaviors that you choose. So once again, that's the dynamic, that's the religion, that's the dynamic that's going on between these order givers and order followers. And what I would say is people will say, well, what's the answer, Mark? What do they have to do? I'm going to give it to you in 3 words. Here's what they have to do. Quit your job. That's the answer, which no one wants to hear. You need to quit your job. Quit. Walk away. Stop doing it. Because if you're involved in the whole institution and what the institution is doing is morally wrong, you're involved in that moral wrong behavior. You're involved in that moral wrongness. Whether you want to tell yourself, I'm not really cooperating with it, I'm trying to work through the inside, it's all justification. Here's the bottom line. They want the paycheck. They want to be attached to the thing that they say that they know. This is all I know, you'll hear. I'm just doing my job. This is what I know how to do. Because what they are is these order followers who follow the orders of this dark priest class. They are frightened little boys and frightened little girls who believe this is all they are and this is all they could ever do. And if that's their view of themselves, they're more likely than not never going to be able to break that mind control. If you have any level of self-respect, you will stop being an order follower and quit your job. That is the answer. It's not anything less easy to do than that. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be, I need to just talk about what's going on in my corrupt institution and still be a part of it. You're lying to yourself. They're lying to themselves. Okay? Everybody wants to say, I could change this from the inside. You're lying to yourself. It's a joke. And the people who are commanding these institutions are laughing. I mean, literally, they're howling laughing, big belly laughs, hysterical laughter at the mindset of people who actually believe I can stay in this corrupt institution and somehow make it better from the inside. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And I recognize fully that's going to be very, very unpopular for people to hear. I'm under no delusions that people will hear that and say, oh, that's so great. No one wants to hear this because everybody wants to believe I'm a good person. I'm not involved in the evil. I'm just trying to help. I'm just trying to do something that's good. I'm just trying to make a difference. If you're involved in an institution where you follow orders, the only difference you're making is adding more chaos and evil to this world, and therefore adding more suffering to it. And if you're telling yourself anything other than that, you're lying to yourself. And I know that comes off as very harsh and very self-righteous, the way I've even said it. I stand by everything I just said, and I will not take it back because I know it's the truth. The answer is, if you're involved in one of these order-following institutions, is to quit your job and go do something else. You're a human being that's capable of more than you think you're capable of. You're certainly capable of breaking out of the poisonous mind control of people who hate you so much that they look at you as less than something that they just scraped off of the bottom of their shoe. Okay? That's how they look at these people. And yet these people in their self-loathing mind state will keep taking their abuse, keep taking their abuse. And what I'm here to tell them is it doesn't have to be that way. They don't need to take that abuse. They can change it anytime they want, but first they have to develop self-respect. That's where it has to start. And self-respect has to you have to develop that by getting over your abandonment issues. These people have abandonment issues and they have trauma issues. They have other traumas have been done to them in their past in some form of abuse, whether it be physical, sexual, psychological, mental, emotional. They've undergone trauma, they've undergone abuse, therefore they have self-loathing issues. And the main thing that self-loathing comes from is neglect, abandonment issues from parental figures. Therefore now the state and these people who are commanding the operations of the state and the institutions of the state are acting as their new parental figures. And that they're taking the role of mommy, that the role mommy never played. They're taking the role that daddy never played in these people's lives. And I understand how harsh this sounds because I'm just throwing it all out on the table. There's no time to sugarcoat any of this, folks. It needs to be understood. The psychological dynamics need to be understood in plain, easy to understand terms where we don't mince words and we don't euphemize. These are people with abandonment issues. They're people with trauma issues. And they needed to conquer them by getting some emotional support from people who understand what's going on with these issues and help these people to develop self-respect because they're self-loathing little boys and self-loathing little girls who are looking to the state to be the new mommy and the new daddy. Okay, that's really what's going on psychologically in the mind of order followers. And again, they don't have to continue to be like that, but you're to convince yourself, to delude yourself into believing that you're going to continue to stay in this institution and somehow, some way, you're not going to be actively involved in propagating evil, chaos, and suffering, you are deluding yourself. You're lying to yourself is what you're doing. It's called cognitive dissonance. You're lying to yourself. The answer is to stop doing what you're doing. It's to stop to continue doing the thing that's bringing on more of the evil. You have to pull back from that. Like I didn't continue when I recognized what Satanism really was. I didn't say, I'm going to work on the inside here. I'm going to start trying to propagate truth within the satanic network. I'm going to be a Satanist and do all the things that Satanists do, and I'm going to work from the inside of this institution to make it better. There's no such thing. It's evil. You need to stop cooperating with it. It's evil. It's there to cause harm. It's there to cause a negative worldview in people's minds so that they stay at a low level of consciousness. Therefore, there is no staying involved in that and somehow doing good. You have to work from the outside to tear that structure down. That's what a positive Mason does. A Freemason, a true Freemason, okay, is a light builder. And what a light builder does is he tears down the negative structures, which I look at myself as a de-occultist. I look at myself as a light Freemason. I look at myself as a light Kabbalist. I look at myself as a light Luciferian. Yes, there are such things. You know, the people who want to believe all these different schools or, you know, different forms of occultism, they're all just bad and they're all propagating bad. No, they're not. There's a positive form for every one of the negative forms. Okay? It's understanding, what are you building with? Are you going to build with darkness and fear and negativity and a poisoned worldview and harmful actions? Or are you going to build with light and knowledge and true understanding and truth and compassion and a positive worldview? You know, that's what a light builder does. And the New Age movement has it wrong too, because they want to believe you only propagate the good and you never talk about the bad. You know, a New Ager would have me never talk about any of this bad stuff. And they're doing a disservice to the community by taking that mindset, because what you ignore is what persists. When you ignore negative, evil things that are taking place around you, that's when they persist. They want to try to turn that around and twist it and to say what you resist persists. It's what you are wrongly resisting, okay? When you wrongly resist the truth, the negative consequences of doing that are going to persist. When you wrongly resist getting involved in the process of exposing evil and exposing injustice and exposing the negativity that's taking place in this world, that's when it's going to persist. It's not the other way around. By exposing it and looking at it, I'm not saying be obsessed with it. I'm saying know what's going on. Be able to effectively communicate that as well. And then you will be in an empowered position, and you will help to put other people in an empowered position through knowledge. You can't ignore something and expect it to go away. When you ignore something, when you ignore symptoms, they grow worse. Because by ignoring the symptom, you're never making an accurate diagnosis of the causal factors of the problem. And therefore, that's why the New Age movement can't give people the solutions, the real solutions, because they're ignoring the problems. They're not talking about the negative, and therefore they're never really getting down to an accurate diagnosis of the causal factors. And in doing so, in not doing so, you cannot identify the solutions either. You're going to be basically running around blind, searching for things and searching for answers, and never really being able to put your thumb on what really caused it, and therefore never being able to put your thumb on how to fix it. So the answer here is look at what's really going on. Be honest with yourself about what you see. Develop the self-respect. Take in that knowledge and then really change it from your inward position, from your inside, not the inside of the institution, from within yourself, by saying, I choose to be part of this anymore, and I will my time, my attention, or my energy to this for 1 second longer. That, by saying no to those institutions that are causing harm, is how we deprive them of their power in the world. That's how real change is made. It is a negative or apophatic process. And again, the New Age movement wants to tell people it's not about the negative. It's not about saying no to something or resisting something. I'm telling people it's all about resisting something. It is all about resistance. Because what we don't resist is what's going to persist in the world. What we don't say no to, we are tacitly saying yes to and empowering. When we don't say no to something, we're basically saying, I'm okay with that continuing. That's what you're saying when you refuse to say the word no. And when you refuse to come out and expose something that's bad, you're saying, I'm okay with this existing. Well, then, by definition, if you're not saying no to evil, you're okay with evil continuing to exist. And again, a big part of the New Age deception as well is they continue to propagate the notion that evil has to continue to exist. No, evil doesn't have to continue to exist. The existence of evil is a choice that we are making. We are allowing it to continue by not about it. That's the problem with good people. The problem with generally that in their mind they're generally good people, they very rarely take real action to stop evil in the world. You know, evil wants to constantly take action to stop good. They're constantly trying to shut down free speech. They're constantly trying to shut down the propagation of positive information and empowering information. They're constantly taking action 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The problem is when good people refuse to take positive action because they say, oh, that's resisting. That's resisting the negative. That's resisting the evil. Yeah, you're damn right it's resisting the evil. That's what we're here to do. We're here to lead a rebellion against all of this evil in the world. Make no mistake about it. This is about rebelling against tyranny and enslavement. And to lead that revolt by saying, this is wrong, it's evil, and it's not going to stand. And the first way I'm going to attack it, the first way I'm going to resist it is by saying no to it totally, fully in my life by not being a part of it. That's the resolve of courage. That's real courage. That's what this is going to take. It's not going to take anything less than that level of resolve. And most people aren't anywhere near that level of courage and resolve. They're wishy-washy. They buy into these ridiculous notions that no action is going to be required, no hard actions that require deep knowledge and deep sacrifice and time and attention and willpower and courage. These things are all going to be required. It's not going to be something that just magically happens on its own with no effort or will. It's going to take tremendous effort, tremendous willpower, tremendous courage. That's what's required based on the condition that we have worked ourselves into right now at this time and place in history. That's the kind of resolve it's going to take. And once again, please, anyone who's listening, do not confuse what I am saying here with any kind of a naive belief system that I believe that this is all just magically happening or that most people are there. I don't think most people are there. I'm being brutally honest, and I'm assessing the situation as I really see it. I'm not looking at the world through rose-colored sunglasses, okay? I'm telling people we need to know where our work is, because don't believe for a minute that the world is there yet. It's not even close to being at that point. Not even close. And I'm not saying that to try to inspire fear or discourage people. I'm telling people you need to look at where the dynamic really is honestly, from an honest perspective. And know we have a lot of work to do to get that level of courage and resolve up to that place. It's nowhere near the level it needs to be at. Not even close. Not even close. So understand what our work is to do, and it is to directly engage the people who are ego-identified into serving this evil system, and to convince them the real great work is to continue to hammer those people with the truth so relentlessly that they finally break down and stop doing what they're doing. That's what the great work is. That's what it's going to take. You have to engage these people who are lost right now. They're lost souls. And hammer them with the truth so relentlessly and so abundantly that their ego identification finally cracks and breaks down. And they can finally see the truth of what they've been involved with. And then they can develop the self-respect to develop the courage to say no to it. No, the lost word. I will not be a part of this anymore. I will not give you my energy anymore. You will not use me as a battery for your agenda, for your evil, sick, twisted, psychopathic agenda. I will not be used like that. That is where real courage lies. And that's the point that we need to get to if we're going to overturn the religion of this dark priest class that is in control of the earth right now.
Mm-hmm. I heard a gentleman told you, when leaving with Sister Satan, even if we came forward and told them how much we control their minds, they wouldn't believe us. Right. How do you feel about that?
When he told me that, I wanted to reach out and grab him by the throat. And I stopped myself from doing it because I realized that I was, in a semi-hostile situation at the time, and I just left peacefully. And I probably wouldn't have left that place if I would have done that. Probably wouldn't be here talking to you if I had taken that action that I thought in my mind to do. What Natalie's referring to here is when I was basically telling some people that I was involved with in Satanism that I was no longer comfortable in being involved, and that I was just going to strike out on my own and not be involved with this anymore. They basically said, in a very condescending way, you're making a big mistake. You don't understand how much we have these people controlled. I didn't. I did not. I didn't understand it at the time. He was right. And again, I don't want to say that what he was saying is wrong, because this person, although a total psychopath and a nut job, was absolutely telling me the truth. I cannot look back in hindsight and say he was lying to me. He wasn't lying to me. He was telling me the truth. Not about that I was making a big mistake. That was his opinion. But when he was telling me, what he was telling me the truth about is how mind-controlled the human populace was. He was trying to explain to me how totally under their spell the rest of the public was. And I didn't understand that at the time. It took me, I would say, a good 5 to 7, maybe even 8 years to fully appreciate what he had said to me. Because he said, you don't understand how much we have their mind. You don't understand where the population is at. Okay? And he was right, I didn't. He said, they're so mind-controlled that you believe you're going to go and tell them what you understand about Satanism and what you've seen here, who's involved with us, and that they're going to somehow embrace what you're saying. They're going to believe you. They're going to change as a result of what you're telling them. Society's going to change. He said, you're so wrong. You're so naive. You don't even know how wrong and naive you are. He said, the level of a mental manipulation that we have the general public under is so great. It's so powerful. It's so total. It's so totally powerful that if we ourselves came forward, all of us simultaneously in all the different institutions that we're involved in, and came out and said, we are Satanists, we are dark occultists. Here's what our ideology is about. Here's what it entails. Here's how we do it. Here's how we operate the media. Here's how we control the media. Here's how we control the military-industrial complex. Here's how we control the medicine and food industries, etc. And of course, the monetary institutions. That's ultimately how they control all of it, is but through the belief in money and the whole fractional reserve fiat currency system. If we came out and told, let's just say, for example, the police, how we're in control of all these institutions, we essentially have molded and shaped them from the cradle and even beyond, in pre-birth, all right? And their whole mindset is a result of what we do. And ultimately, we're in control of their institution at the highest level. And how we control them with occult symbols, etc., all of it. He just said, if we came out and exposed exactly how we do what we do, and how we control these people's minds, and how we are the controllers of the highest levels of all of their institutions in all aspects of life, they wouldn't believe us. We have our subjects, in other words, so mind-controlled that we ourselves can't take them out of the mind control, is what he was saying. We are powerless, in a sense, from even undoing what we have done, is what he was saying to me. He was saying our mind control is so total that if we wanted to try to wake up the people we have under it, we couldn't do it. And I believe him. And many people will say, oh, Mark, you're duped by this guy. He's trying to put a negative worldview on you. I believe what he's telling me through experience. I know how controlled people are from studying it and from talking to people and asking people questions about what they believe and where their mindset is at. I mean, I need to look no further than the homework results from the natural law seminar that I just held in Philadelphia this summer, to the social experiments that we did with people from the public to understand where people's mindset is at and how mind controlled they are. I need to look no further than that to understand it. But what he was telling me is these people are so identified with their version of life, with how they believe life really is, even though that's the story of life. That's the movie, in other words. That's the propagated, movie variant of reality that they're being projected on a day-to-day basis, like on a movie screen in their mind. They would prefer to believe that over the truth. And no amount of explaining the truth is ever going to take them out of that ego-identified mind state, because they prefer comfortable ignorance to the moral responsibility that comes with being a knowledgeable person. So he said, you're not going to wake these people up. They call them the dead. They call these people that they're talking about who are under total mind control like this, the dead. They refer to the common everyday person as someone who is dead. They're not alive because they have no knowledge. Therefore, their thoughts are deadened. They have no empathy or compassion or emotion of what's going on in the world to others or even their own children. So therefore, they're emotionally dead, and they're spiritually dead. They don't have any truly developed spiritual, aspect of their personality, and don't really understand who they really are at a fundamental level, at a universal level of consciousness. So they're spiritually dead. So they're dead in mind, body, and spirit. And their actions are deadened. They're not taking any action, of course, because they don't have any knowledge and they don't care. So they're dead in thoughts, emotions, and actions in mind, body, and spirit. And I can't tell anybody that this person, this twisted psychopath lunatic who was telling me this after a satanic ritual one night in, I believe it was northern Maryland, where this took place. When he was telling me this, I can't tell you that he was wrong. I can tell you it almost threw me into a fit of blind rage where I literally wanted to kill this person for saying it like that and saying it that bluntly, because I felt so helpless and so horrified that he was saying that this is how bad the human condition was and this is the world I'm living in, that I just wanted to attack him at the time. And as I said, I didn't do that. But in hindsight, I can't tell you that what he was telling me was incorrect, because this is how mind-controlled these people are. The mind control is so strong. Please do not make the mistake of believing that it's easy or is going to be easy to take these people out of this mind state. They are so attached to the prison. They are so attached to the lie. They love the prison. They love the lie. They want their slavery. They love it because it implies no responsibility for them to think. And what these people want above all else is not to think. And let me just repeat that emphatically. What these people that we're talking about, who our freedom depends upon their behavior is affecting our freedom, okay? What they want more than anything else is not to think. They do not want to use their mind. They want to stay in that spiritually, emotionally, and mentally deadened condition. They don't want to use those aspects of themselves. So they want to stay in that shutdown position because they erroneously believe, that staying in that place like a total ignorant child can absolve them of personal responsibility. And it cannot. They're wrong about that. See, but that's their belief system. That's their religion. It goes like this somewhere deep in the nested subconscious mind. Here's the story they're telling themselves. I was abused or I was abandoned. I don't want to think. I hate myself. This is the condition I am in now. This is the condition I want to stay in. I want to stay this helpless, harmed child, because a helpless, harmed child has no responsibility to anybody, most of all themselves. Therefore, I don't want to know anything. I don't want to learn anything. I don't want to know what's going on. Most of all, I don't want to know what's really going on inside myself. I want to stay in this level of ignorance. I want to stay in this level of total darkness, because I believe that absolves me of all personal responsibility for my behavior. So therefore, I can listen to what this psychopathic idiot over here is telling me to do. Just act on it. on a whim as an automaton. And therefore, that takes care of everything I have to do in life. And I collect a paycheck. I can have a house like that, even maybe have a family if, someone is stupid enough to take me as their spouse and have children with me. Okay? So I'll undershoot there and look for someone as non-intelligent as I am, okay, that likes that I do these things, okay, and they're as spiritually dead as I am, and that'll just ride me through this life. I'll be able to do this until the day I die, and all my physical needs will be met, because that's the other thing they're constantly telling themselves. I'm only physical. There's no deeper psychological component to me, deeper emotional component to me. Most of all, there's no spirit. I'm just this collection of atoms that is all working like a dead machine, There's no spirit that underlies anything. Certainly no consciousness following physical death. When life ceases, that's it. It's eternal blackness. This is the story that's going on in the mind of these borderline psychopathic, ignorant people who are order followers. It's all about self-loathing. It's all about wanting to continue to follow orders because they hate themselves. And they hate themselves because of abandonment issues that they have on the part of either their mother or their father, or both parents. So until those issues, those psychological nested issues that are buried down deep in the subconscious to protect the conscious mind from that trauma, until those issues are dredged up and dealt with, the person is incapable of developing self-respect and therefore even wanting to learn. And this is what the people who have done this to them essentially know. These mind controllers know all of that, what I just laid out. They know that's their state. And they say the amount of work that would be required into getting that person out of that mental state is so tremendous that I don't even know if I could do it if I tried with everything I know about the human psyche. And once again, I've said this before about people who follow and serve this system. And to my knowledge, I only know one person who has completely upped and quit. Maybe two. I'd have to say two. I think I do know one police officer, because of what he's heard me say regarding this situation, and has finally looked into it and looked into all the different work that me and many other people have put out, has quit his job. And I know one person, I believe, who basically quit their career in the military as a result. So I know two people, one cop, one soldier, who stopped doing what they were doing because they learned the truth. In my whole life, in all the many years I've been doing this, and all the people who have ever told me about people that they know, two people, it has come to my attention, who have actually stopped doing what they've been doing. Now, if anybody thinks that's going to get it done and that's going to make the world free, you're delusional, totally delusional. Which is why, until more people start doing this work of putting the truth out there to other people, more people have to start speaking the truth about the difference between right and wrong. More people have to start speaking the truth about the evil that is inherent to the current institutional bodies of this world, most of all the police and the military. Until more people start openly speaking about that to people who are involved, don't expect anything in this world or in this life to change. It will continue to grow worse, because these people are a cult. They are a cult. It is a secret society. The police are a cult. The military is a cult. It is a secret society that takes these people away from the average society. They are sequestered. They are trained in a sequestered environment. They are put through regimented ritual practices that condition them more and deeper and do deeper patterning hypnotic conditioning upon them in their boot camp and in their training camps. It is a cult. It uses the exact same techniques that any other cult uses. Isolation, repetition, us versus them mentality, poor diet, rituals. Okay? It's the same techniques as any other cult uses. Trauma, exploiting trauma. Okay, sleep deprivation. You name the technique, it's used in the military and the police. The exact same techniques of cults. It's no different than the techniques that are used to train military and police. These are indoctrinated cult members And I don't really care who thinks that's harsh and who thinks that that's, oh, you're overstating it. No, I'm not. I know the techniques of cults. Hell, I was involved in a cult for many years. I know their techniques. And I'm telling you, it's identical to what the police and military go through. Identical, point for point. I've done podcasts on these techniques and compared them point for point to military and police training, and they are identical. So this is what we have to realize we're up against. We are up against the task before us is this. It is no less than this. It is converting a cult member out of their cult belief system. That is what we need to do. And again, that's what this Satanist was saying to me. He was saying that work is so hard, we couldn't do it. Well, then you know who it falls to? It falls to whoever is listening to this. Whoever is listening to this broadcast, that's your work. That's my work. That's the work that is before us if we really want to change this world. We have to get these people out of their cult mentality. And that is going to take a tremendous act of will, knowledge, and courage. And that's what wisdom really is, doing that work. It's taking that action. You want to be someone who's wise, who has real wisdom? Get involved in doing that work and taking that action. That's where real wisdom lies.
I'm just amazed how these people's philosophy is accepted in television.
Sure. Sure. They propagate it through all forms of entertainment, because they know that that's where people are going to be going in a susceptible mind state. If you're active constantly during the day and working and doing things around the house, that's very much left-brained activity. When you're ready to relax and involve and get away from the daily chores of the day or your work cycle, and you want to just relax and have some entertainment, that's shifting you into a right brain mentality. And in a right brain mind state, you go into that relaxed, hypnagogic state that is almost like a trance induction. It's very similar to an induction of a hypnotic trance. And you're very, very susceptible in that mind state. So when you're watching television, and shutting the logical, analytical mind off, you go into that right brain mode. That's a prime state of mind for them to inject messages in. And therefore, that's why they prefer to do that through television and through movies. Absolutely. So it's very important to keep the analytical mind awake when we enter a movie and look at what messages is this sending. You have to filter it. You have to consciously try to keep that part of the mind open and awake, so that it's taking it in through the right brain, but then it's sending it to the left and saying, what is being said here? What am I really being shown? So that this doesn't all just go right to the subconscious unfiltered. And it could be a tricky task to do. It's something that takes practice. You have to be aware of what to look for. And, is this allegorical? And, what is the underlying message of this allegory? What symbols are being used? What color patterns are being used? What patterns of speech are being used? Neurolinguistic programming, symbolism. All of that comes into play when you're talking about something as seemingly innocuous as general entertainment. It's much more than that because, again, the people in the entertainment industry at the highest levels are involved in these satanic networks, without any shadow of a doubt in my mind.
I was reading about Rosemary's Baby and Vigilant Citizen. There have been rumors claiming that Andre LaVey played the uncredited role of Satan. Was he part of this movie?
I don't know that for certain. I've heard that rumor as well. It's quite possible. But I would say that probably that may not be a totally accurate picture, but it's probably somewhat similar to what goes on in some of the higher classes of society that is involved in this, network in an intergenerational role. So multi-generational satanic families, I would say, probably do have cults or societies like that and perform rituals similar to what they did there in that movie. And Roman Polanski, who was involved in making that movie, I would definitely say had some involvement in the dark occult in his life and was trying to portray that in probably somewhat of a somewhat drummed up way or an exacerbated way in the on the screen in his movie there.
Was Aleister Crowley the founder of a satanic ideology, and is it a religion?
Well, this could be the topic of an entirely an entire show unto itself, and my feelings on Crowley are very mixed, and I take a lot of flack for that because people will see Crowley as just an evil human being who did a lot of bad things in his life. I did a show with Bob, listener to my show, Bob from Cincinnati, and then he formed his own radio program called Occult Empire. And I did a show with Bob on Crowley's ideology, his philosophy, if you want to call it a religion. It's called Thelema, Thelema, Thelema. And my take on Thelema is that it is very positive. It is not a dark or satanic ideology. That being said, I would warn people who are going to get involved in the study of Thelema that it is a mixed bag, and that understanding Crowley's writings entails attempting to go in and understand the psyche of the man. And that's where we get into the hairy area when it involves Aleister Crowley. I would say Crowley was what I would call a gray magician at best. Many people will look at him simply as, the dark side and the black wizard. I would say Crowley wrote through what he called automatic writing. Now, in the New Age movement, this is called channeling, and some people still call it automatic writing. In other words, you're opening, you're letting your ego take a step to the side, and you're allowing a channeled entity to come in and give you a message for a time. And then you go back to your own normal, everyday waking mindset. But during the time when this entity or this consciousness is speaking to you, you're writing down everything that they say, and you're not involved. You're just, your mind steps aside and then you write. It's called automatic writing or channeling. There's some people today who are very known for it. There's a woman, Barbara Marciniak. I've actually had an opportunity to see her live in person do this channeling. She puts forward a lot of good information. I wouldn't take all of it and say it's all great, but there's another guy by the name of Bashar who very odd when he does his channeling, and many people do look very odd when they go into the channeled state. They often take on a deeper voice, etc. It's a very weird thing for people who haven't seen it, especially. But I think Bashar has some good information when he channels. I wouldn't say I take all of anything that these people say. I filter it and say, is there some good stuff here? What am I going to leave? There's another person, I'm trying to think of their name. It just slipped my mind. Okay, so anyway, but essentially what channeling is you're taking in information from another entity or another form of consciousness, and you're either speaking what they're saying to you. Oh, I know who I was going to say. Esther Hicks. She's very popular with the law of attraction in the New Age circles. And she has some good information as well that's channeled. So I would say Crowley is one of these people. He was channeling. And again, when you're taking in channeled information, you have to be wary. First of all, that's not coming from that person. It's being filtered through that person. Secondly, you want to say, with anybody that you're listening to, including myself, you don't want to take in everything that they're saying. You want to say, I want to check this out for myself. And then if it bears out after I've checked into it, then I could take it on as my own, thoughts and what I, accept to be true. But Crowley's writings are a mixture of channeled or automatic writing and his own writing, where you can clearly, I feel, if I'm reading it, I can almost clearly see the difference between Crowley, the man, writing and the channeled writing that he was doing. So that's the first thing to understand about Thelemic writings, or writings that Aleister Crowley put forward, is some of it's his own, some of it's channeled. And therefore, you have to really take a step back and try to say, I need to separate the writings from the man. In other words, who knows? I might go out and commit a crime at some point, and that wouldn't be something that I would advise anybody to do. Circumstances may change. I may fall from, the moral life I'm attempting to live. Anything could happen in my future. Okay, the future's not written. I don't know what I may do in the future. Okay, I just try to do the best I can in the moment to not cause harm and to live the non-aggression principle. Okay, but would that negate everything I've ever said? If I did, fall off the path and do something harmful to somebody else? I don't think it would negate everything I've said. The words are still going to be the truth. I would just say, you wouldn't want to do that action. Well, it's the same thing with Crowley. Crowley talked the path and didn't necessarily walk the path in his life, and he did some harmful things. And I'm not telling anybody go and emulate Crowley's life. Never have. Never will. I wouldn't want anybody to live like he lived, because look at how he even ended up. Because of the immoral stuff that he did, he ended up a drug addict, homeless, not homeless, but living in kind of a hovel in England, and penniless, with no friends, and hardly anybody attended his funeral. A few people, but, it was just like people stopped caring about him at all. He lived his end of his life was lived in total solitude, essentially, with a couple of people around him. And I believe that that's like what he got as a result of how he lived, because he did live in a very hedonistic lifestyle that often involved, using people for what he wanted to get out of them, because he knew how to manipulate them through his studies of the occult and the human psyche. And that's not the right way to use that knowledge. He did, however, diffuse a lot of his knowledge through his books and his tarot deck, etc. So there's a positive side to Crowley as well, and there's a very positive side to Thelemic teachings. If we really understand the spiritual aspect of Thelemic teachings, it is a philosophy that is absolutely built upon moral law, upon natural law, and it is a philosophy that is absolutely totally geared toward developing a society that is based on freedom, on true freedom. So I would suggest to people who want to learn more about that, go look at my website. You can get that show in the news section. You'll probably have to scroll down quite a bit to find it. But it was the show I did on Occult Empire on Crowley and Thelema, the Thelemic philosophy. I think I did a good job on that podcast, and I put up a lot of supporting material with it. So I highly encourage people to check that out in the news section of whatonearthishappening.com.
Could you give us your info on your website?
Yes, my website is whatonearthishappening.com. And there's a tremendous body of work up there in the form of videos and podcasts and resources. I highly suggest people to go to the podcast section and go back to podcast number 1 and work your way forward in order and take them at your own pace, because if you do that, a tremendous tapestry of information and knowledge will open up to you if you have an open mind and if you have the will to basically plow through that material one at a time. And again, you could take it at your own pace, no rush. But if you do that, I guarantee you'll benefit tremendously from the body of audio material that is on that website. And if you find it of value, absolutely share it with other people. So that's my website, whatonearthishappening.com.
Thank you for coming on to Crystal Kids Radio Show, and thank you for your time. It was truly a pleasure having you, and I hope to have you back on my radio show in the near future.
It's a pleasure to have been here today on the show.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on Crystal Kids Radio. Support us kids on Crystal Kids Radio's Facebook. Please support us kids, because it takes a lot of work doing it, and it comes from my heart. Same stuff from the children. Peace, love, and harmony. See you next week at the same time, same place. Love you all.